In Matthew 26, a woman walked into a house with expensive perfume and anointed Jesus' head with it. And Jesus made a comment after she did that. He said, wherever the gospel is preached, what this woman has done will always be remembered as a memorial to her. My question is, when was the last time you heard this story? If Jesus himself said that what this woman did would always be remembered and told in parallel with the gospel message, then why don't we hear this story told more often? And it dawned on me that the reason why we don't hear this story enough is because we don't understand the significance of what she did. I believe herself and Nicodemus are two people in the Bible that don't get the credit that they deserve in the redemptive story of Jesus. And so in this video, I'm going to be sharing the significance of why Jesus said what she did would always be remembered and told. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how this revelation can help you manifest Proverbs 18 verse 16. It says, a man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. And so if you want to know how to, number one, identify your gift, and number two, know how to position your gift in a way that it attracts the attention of great men, then this video is absolutely for you. But before we get started, there's some things that we need to align on. Number one is that the Old Testament is a foreshadowing of the New Testament. What that means is that Jesus in the Old Testament was concealed, while Jesus in the New Testament was revealed. What that means is that there are a lot of stories in the Old Testament that are similar or that are parallel to Jesus' story in the New Testament. And so one of the books that I didn't expect to see a direct parallel was the book of Esther. I remember reading it recently, and that's the book I've been stuck on lately. In chapter 2, after Vashti did what she did, the wise men told the king, he said, it's time to look for a new queen. Let's select women from all the provinces. The three qualifications that they decided upon were that the women had to be beautiful, young, and they needed to be virgins. I call that the 3 P's because beautiful means that they were physically attractive. Young means that they had potential, which means their best days were ahead of them, not behind them. And the third one was that virgins, they needed to be pure. But what surprised me, because to me, I'm like, these women are already perfect. But in verse 12 of chapter 2, it then says that they needed to go through an additional 12 months of preparation, where they would go 6 months using the oil of myrrh and another 6 months using perfume. I remember just thinking, man, 12 months of additional preparation, even though they were already perfect the way they were. But then I realized that there's a different level of preparation that you have when you're meeting ordinary people versus when you're meeting a king. Here's my point. Jesus lived the perfect life. But in order for Jesus to be presented to the King of Kings, there needed to be some additional preparation. And so that is where the story of this woman actually comes in. This woman came to anoint Jesus with perfume, which explains the significance of why Jesus said her story would always be mentioned. Guess what? They also needed to be anointed with the oil of myrrh. Now, this is where Nicodemus actually comes in. Because in John chapter 19 verse 38, it says, after this, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus, and Pilate gave him permission. So he came and took the body of Jesus, and Nicodemus, who at first came to Jesus by night, also came bringing a mixture of, guess what? Myrrh and aloes. There are 2 people in the Bible that I believe don't get enough credit. And it is Nicodemus who came with the myrrh, and the woman who anointed Jesus' head with perfume. And I believe this is significant because whenever we talk about the gospel, we leave this part out. We always talk about how Jesus was the perfect sacrifice. But it's possible to be the perfect sacrifice, but that sacrifice not be accepted. Let me show you what I mean, because in Esther 2:13, after they had gone through the 12-month preparation, verse 13 then says, thus prepared, each young woman went to the king, and she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the women's quarters to the king's palace. And so every woman had the option to take something that would be pleasing to the king. And Esther, because she obtained favor with Haggai, she didn't just come with what she thought the king would like. She came with what the king actually liked. A lot of the other women came with what they thought the king would like. But because she had found favor in the eyes of Haggai, she was able to come directly with what the king would find pleasing and acceptable to him. Now let's check out Romans 12:2, because there's something that we miss here. Romans 12:2 says, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. For you to be in the will of God, it needs to be good, perfect, and acceptable. And so the fact that Jesus lived the perfect life was not enough for his sacrifice to be accepted in heaven. He also needed to go through the sanctification of the perfume and also the oil of myrrh. And so why is this important? Because earlier I mentioned how Proverbs 16:18 says that a man's gift will make room for him and bring him in front of great men. And so how does this revelation help that? So lately I've been struggling with fasting. I'm just going to be vulnerable and share that. And it's not like I don't fast. It's that God is calling me into deeper levels of fasting. It's getting so, I don't want to say ridiculous, but so deep, because I'm like, are you trying to kill me? Like every instruction cannot be, you're not eating today. Right? Like what is going on? And I remember just having the conversation with God. I'm like what's up with this always fasting and fasting? And the response that he gave me was, I'm preparing your gift to serve kings, not ordinary men. And because of that, your level of preparation needs to be different from the average person. In the same way that Esther, in order to see the king, she had to go through a different level of preparation. For a lot of us, we don't realize that God is trying to refine our gifts to serve kings. And one thing that he told me as well is that you don't have time. You are living life like you have enough time to fulfill the vision that I have birthed in you. You're not living with urgency. And so I'm trying to refine you. I'm trying to cut out the distractions from your life so that you can really focus on what I have planned for you to do. You're focused on doing good things. You're not focused on doing the right things. And so what God was trying to tell me was that your level of preparation is different because I'm trying to refine your gift to serve on a higher level. And so if your gift is going to make room for you, then we need to get comfortable cutting the distractions out of our lives. And one of the ways that God does that is through fasting, is through consecration, because time is our most valuable asset. You can always lose money and gain money back, but when you lose time, you never get it back. But what I want to show you in this video is how you can redeem the time that has been lost in your past and reallocate that time to refining your gift to serve kings. Let me show you what I mean, because I saw this TED talk. I'm going to play the first 2 to 3 minutes, and it is going to shock you because a lot of us live life thinking that we have time. And what you come to realize is that at most, we only have about 15 years to leave an impact on this world. Check it out, and I'll see you guys after.
The dots on this screen represent an adult life in months, assuming a life expectancy of 90. So if you're 18 years old right now, this is an optimistic estimate of the months that you have left. Take a second to take that in. Probably not as many as you would expect. And I'm sorry to say that it does get worse, because about a third of that time is going to be spent sleeping. On average, 126 of those months will go to school and your career. About 18 will be spent driving, 36 cooking and eating, 36 doing chores and errands, and about 27 in the bathroom and taking care of personal hygiene. So that leaves you with 334 months, optimistically, for everything else. So this is where you tick the boxes on your bucket list. This is where you pursue your passions and travel the world and leave your mark. How you spend this time is going to determine the quality of your life. But this time isn't just something that you spend, it's also something that you invest. Because what you do with it will quite literally determine the kind of person you become. The body, mind, and character that you will have in the future are being actively shaped by how you choose to use your time today. So take a second and ask yourself, what do you want to do with that free time? What things do you want to do that you haven't done? Who do you want to spend that time with? What is worth investing it in? Now, I would be willing to bet that scrolling through TikTok, binge watching Netflix, and playing video games probably did not come to mind. But today, the average 18-year-old in the United States is on pace to spend 93% of their remaining free time looking at a screen. That is not counting time for school.
I remember when I watched this video, it hit me like a ton of bricks. A few things that I want to mention here. The stat that he shows is based on a life expectancy of 90. Most people don't get to live till 90. And so the 334 months that he mentioned is more the ultra optimistic goal. It's not the realistic one, because most people will not live that long. 334 months is 28 years, which means that you have 28 years to leave your mark if you're going to live till 90. But what if you're only going to live till 60, 70? That number drastically reduces. I also noticed something. He never mentioned time that you need to dedicate to your marriage, to your kids if you do have kids. And so it really convicted me. I've been asking God, how do I live with urgency? And it's funny because before I watched this video, the Holy Spirit told me, live like you just have 10 years left. And then I see this and I'm like, like at most, we have about 15 to 20 years to live our mark on the world. We don't have as much time. And so I know a lot of people ask me, they're like, how do you get so many revelations? It feels like you're just filled with so much wisdom. And I tell them, I don't just tithe money, I tithe my time. I don't just tithe at least 10% of my income. I tithe at least 10% of my day. I spend at least 2 hours and 40 minutes every day seeking God. If I'm not reading the Bible, I'm meditating. If I'm not meditating, I'm praying. If I'm not doing that, I'm listening to a sermon. 2 hours, 40 minutes is the least that I give to God every single day. And a lot of people don't realize that they have the time because they are reallocating that time into other things like playing games, watching. If a typical football game lasts 2 hours, soccer, 2 hours. And the whole idea behind me showing you this video is I'm trying to show you how you can redeem your time back. There are a lot of things that are stealing, killing, and destroying the time that you have left to leave an impact. And one of the ways that God helps us to redeem the time is through fasting. Now I realize why God told me to stop watching soccer games. It didn't make sense because you might think watching soccer is not a bad thing. Yes, the more you grow with God, the more you realize that the choices are not between good and bad things. They're between good and right things. And so watching football may be a good thing, but it may not be the right thing that will allow you to produce the fruit that Jesus died for you to produce. And so thinking about your life, what are the areas that the Holy Spirit is convicting you to give up so that you can rededicate that time to seeking Him, to refining your gift, to ensuring that you're able to maximize the time that you have left? Because as you can see, we don't have enough time. Imagine how much social media is taking away from our lives. How can we reallocate those wasted times into something more productive? And so I guess the point of this video is, if you want your gift to make room for you and bring you before great men, you need to be willing to prepare like you are going to meet the great men. And that will require you to effectively manage your time. To number one, identify what your gifts are by discovering who you are, by consecrating, by giving up all these things that are distracting you from discovering who you are. And once you do that, now you can redeem time that is being lost doing other good things and reallocate it into doing the right thing. And the more you do that, it will begin to compound to the point where it now becomes refined enough that great men begin to seek you. And so I hope this has made sense. For full transparency, I promised to do 2 videos a month. The last video took a while to make, and so I decided to just drop this one as an impromptu. Hope it made sense. Would love to get your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care. Bye.